All right. All righty. So we'll just wait a couple of seconds as some people join in. As you join, I'll ask you guys to mute your mics if you do have a lot of background noise. And then we'll start in about 10 seconds here. All right. Welcome once again to the relationship series. It is so great to be here again and to have you guys all join in. Today, we will be talking about family vacations. So we are going to have a transformational conversation about family vacations. I feel like that all rhymes somehow. But here, this is what we do. We have conversations about how to revolutionize our relationships, and everything and all things in life revolves around relationships. And so it behooves us to make attempts to do them well. So here we have a motto. We say we do the work, we heal for real, and we sow what we want to grow. And so my name is Genevieve. You guys know me. I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, I'm a registered psychotherapist by trade, and I have a passion for relationships. I am not an expert by any means. I struggle in relationships just like everybody else, but I think anytime that we spend really focusing in on how to improve our relationships is time well spent. And so I want to give us an opportunity to do that every week. And so we're doing that today. So here we go. We're going to jump in and see where we get to. Our agenda is very, very, very much the same as every week. We will start with our why. Why are we here? What are we talking about? Why will it be helpful for you? We'll go through some quotes, some stats. We'll look at some studies, some information that might be helpful around the topic. And then, of course, the benefits for cultivating revolutionary relationships. I am very interruptible. Okay, again, I'm not an expert. We're here having a transformational conversation. And so we really want for everybody to join in different perspectives, different ideas, challenge my perspectives and my ideas, just your input. So I usually take a look at the chat, make sure I keep an eye on it. If you send me a private message, I won't read it, but if you send a public message, I will read it out loud, just so that we can invite other voices into the conversation. If you do want to raise your hand and I see it, then you can turn on your mic and ask a question or give a comment, share your story. And even if you don't raise your hand, if you just turn on your mic and you say, "Hey, Jen, can I interrupt you?" I am very interruptible again. And I welcome and invite your comments in the chat, your comments out loud, your conversational pieces, your stories especially, and your opinions and ideas. Okay, so the chat is open. Again, your stories are gold to me. And so I welcome all of it. Okay. Let's jump into, let's see here. Okay, let's do this. Ooh, can I switch it? There we go. Okay, our why. Why are we talking about this topic today? Well, summer's coming. The kids are almost out of school, and this is part of our family edition when it comes to the relationship series. So the summer's coming. Yes, most families, couples, and families, right? Families are like friends who are like family groups, are planning vacations, right? A lot of people have vacation time throughout the summer or take vacation time throughout the summer. And so we're talking about it now in hopes that in some ways it provides some kind of preparation or help as we go into the summer months. We want to look at some tips, right? What not to do as we plan our family vacations. And then we, of course, want to be intentional, right? Because intentionality increases our success, and success is defined as meeting our objectives. What did we want to achieve or accomplish? We set that out in our minds, and we define success as having achieved or accomplished the thing that we set out in our minds. And so when we think about it in the context of relationships, or we think about it in the context of vacations, we might set an intention. Oh, we want to have a good time. We want to get to know each other. We want to build the bonds. We want to explore. We want to have an adventure. that kind of thing. And so at the end of the vacation, we want to be able to say, yeah, I did that. Right. And so when we have intentionality and imagination, then we are more likely to succeed at the goals in which we set for ourselves. Okay. Another indirect reason, or maybe latent reason, is that I really love to travel. I love going on vacation, sort of. I'll say I love traveling. I love going to different places. And I love what happens during travel. I love the roller coaster ride, the ups and the downs, and the waiting at the airport, and sometimes the delays, um, and even planning. I love the planning part, like researching, looking things up. I love sometimes even being tired, like tired and annoyed, by certain things. It really pushes me out of my comfort zone. So I love what happens to me during travel, and I love seeing myself respond in different ways as I travel. And some travel is for fun, some is for adventure, some, trying new things, or just getting a break to escape from reality, or from, regular life. But I love the idea of traveling. I also love airplanes and boats for some reason. Like, the idea of, and I was telling this to my speaking mentor the other day, I was saying that the idea that a hunk of like metal can like soar through the air, or like sit on top of water, I think that's fascinating. It's amazing to me. And so I think the idea of traveling and the ways of traveling are like really fascinating to me. Anyway, and so when we go on family vacations, we usually go on a cruise, or we go on a plane or a train or something. And so modes of traveling are really cool. So I would like to hear from you all who are joining in the conversation today. I don't know, what do you guys love? What do you guys love about traveling, and what do you love about maybe seeing yourself travel? And yeah, share who you are, where you're from, that kind of thing. Throw it in the chat. I'd love to see who's here today.
Can I jump in?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
absolutely. Oh my goodness, sorry. You know what? Let me actually introduce you, because I introduced you
Oh,
last week. Or do you want to introduce yourself?
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay. So I introduced um a pseudo expert in this area. And I say expert because he's had experience, so life expert. This is my friend Jason. Jason is here joining us. He is a family man, so he has a family of his own. I have known Jason 4 years. He is amazing, an amazing friend, and I know a little bit about his story and his history, and some of the positions that he's held over the years. And he is a wise voice, a wise voice of counsel, and also a vulnerable voice of experience. And so very, very open to sharing authentically about the real. And so I'm deferring, of course, because I don't have kids and so on. I'm deferring to Jason and some of his experiences today as we talk about family vacations. So join in, Jason.
Thank you. That was an amazing intro. I'm still looking for the person you're talking about. Um, and I looked at the up in the chat. I know some of the people who are up in there. So hello to some of my peers, some of my friends who I've known for years as well. So thank you for letting me share some of my story. I have had some experience traveling on my own, um, and with my family. Um, I could say that having traveled, I got a chance to live overseas for a few years. I was living in Japan for 2 years, and I did some traveling while I was there. What's up, guys? How you doing? Um, and having traveled with my family, I like traveling with my family more. The Japan experience, the traveling at that time, that was very much about me and my own self development. Now, my my view on traveling is that what I want to do is create opportunities for my children to get something out of the traveling. So I want them to experience things, um, more so for their own personal development,
Mm-hmm.
because I saw how beneficial travel was for me. That's why whenever I get a chance to see you in person, Ginny, like I'm so excited for you because I know like leaving what you know, leaving what's familiar, going someplace that's unfamiliar, the skills and the opportunities and the wins and losses in those settings, those are like no one can ever take that away from you, right? No one can ever take those experiences.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they're away from our network and our family or our family.
Mhm.
And so to me, those were some of the most beneficial times
Yeah.
for my personal development. So I want my kids to develop a passion for travel
Mhm.
because we're living in a time, I believe, as human beings where travel is accessible to
Yeah.
a large portion of the population. And so it's like, this is something you should take advantage of. Beyond like, to me, beyond buying a home, beyond starting your career, beyond all your aspirations of like getting things, you know, the Bible says, before you get all those things, get knowledge, right? Get the things that are intangible. I think travel is definitely a gateway to the intangible things. And so with my children, traveling with them, I prefer out of all of them, all ways and means of travel, I prefer the road trip. I
Ooh.
think the road trip uh, is definitely more of an experience. It takes longer, I find. And in the long period of time it takes, there's more room for conversation. There's more room for, and this is personal, there's more forced dialogue because we're in this car for whenever I say road trip, at least 5 hours plus, right? Like, in traffic in Toronto, 2 hours is a normal thing.
Minimum.
So
Minimum.
minimum, right? To get from here to like London, Ontario on a regular day, it's like 2+ hours. To me, road trip is like 5 hours. And, you know, all the songs play in rotation on the radio. You start to repeat themselves. So now it's time to talk because we've
Yes.
gotten through all that.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, those are good. Those are beneficial times. I think my kids have mentioned they enjoy that as well. I have a teenager, so I have a 14 turning 15, a 12
Wow.
turning 13, and a 7 turning 8. Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the youngest doesn't really care about the journey. She cares about arriving at the destination.
Mm.
I've oldest now and my middle to some degree care about the path there. They
Mhm.
like the journey there is the anticipation, all that. They like the build up,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, I don't know if anybody else who've traveled with younger people, um, whether they're your children or not, they could be like your niece, your nephew, a family friend. Like the build up to get someplace is like where a lot of the fun comes from.
Absolutely.
And then the process coming back, talking about the experiences there. And now we have a frame of reference that's really intimate. That's really our frame of reference. So the time we went here,
Right.
remember going there, remember what happened there, and remember what happened on the way back. I find those worth the long drive. So
Absolutely. And I think you highlighted something so key there, Jason, and so many great points in there, just about like the planning and the process, the preparation, and so on. And we'll talk about the privilege and maybe some of the stressors as well. But the other thing that is so phenomenal about the traveling is it's such an excellent opportunity to build relationships with ourselves and with our loved ones. So getting to know them as they go through different stages and helping them to get to know themselves, especially traveling with young people, helping them to get to know themselves as they develop and they grow and they have different preferences about the travel experience. And I think that's it's such a powerful part of family vacations.
yeah,
So we'll ground ourselves. This is a very, again, we do very basic definitions. a family vacation is a chance to get away, put aside your worries, focus on spending time with your family. And I think I don't know who said it or where the quote comes from, but there's a quote that says, if you really want to get to know someone, go on a road trip with them. I think it's like relationship advice from like the ancient days or what have you.
Yeah.
So I love that, laying the foundation. I'm gonna go through just a couple of things that are good to think about, to reflect on when we think about like vacation time. Um, and this may not be obvious, and it wasn't necessarily obvious to me. And I put the problem because I have 4 Ps and I wanted to keep the P. It's not necessarily a problem, but there are things to think about, to consider. That family vacations in general can be a time of stress, can be stressful, okay? And so I put the problem here: time, pretense, and a quick fix. So time is that real life is spent, and maybe I'll sort of ground this in my experience. So when I was younger, we used to have like family dinners, right? We'd have dinner as a family. When I started getting older as a teenager, those times decreased significantly until we were kind of like in our own little modes, in our own little worlds, doing our own thing, right? So we kind of pass through the kitchen at certain times, through the living room at certain times. And I remember like Saturday mornings were cleaning time, Sundays were church time, but then it was like we ate on the go. Parents were like, can I get a ride to go meet my friends, do extracurricular activities, and so on. So time sometimes becomes an issue when it comes to vacation, because we are expected to all gather together in the same place for an extended period of time when we're not necessarily used to doing that on a regular basis. And so some of the issues that come up are, oh my gosh, I'm so used to, eating and passing. What do I do now that I'm sitting in front of you, eating? So I think it's important to recognize that we may want to do our own thing at some point in time during the vacation, and to plan for it, right? To plan for the reality of being in close context with people that you're not normally in close context with, um, and finding it difficult to do that. Finding that you might get annoyed or you might get tired. You might be like, oh, I don't want to do what you want to do. And you may not know how to articulate that, how to set boundaries and respect boundaries and things like that. So I think time can be an issue. Pretense can be an issue as well. Because being in such close proximity for a certain amount of time really strips away pretense and reveals like the kind of relationship that you really have with the people you're on vacation with. I'll never forget this. When I was in my 20s and I started working, had a little bit of money, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be such a good daughter and I'm going to take my mom on a cruise. So I planned this cruise to the Bahamas on like Royal Caribbean. And we get there, and there's lots going on, so there's lots of things to do. But I remember distinctly, like at meal times, we had to gather at a table, and we had a table with, there was like I think a son and a father, and then like this couple who were there, and they were talking about themselves and talking about each other and sharing and so on. And it like occurred to me at one point, I was like, I I don't really, I'm like struggling for things to talk about, because I'm like, I don't really know this person. Like, I don't really know my mom. I mean, she's my mom, but I didn't really like know her preferences, know things like up to date in her life. And she didn't really know me either, which was, it was like, it was a weird sort of experience. But we're on this vacation, she's my mom, I'm her daughter, and we should know each other, but we don't. And I remember that became sort of an internal mission for me. I was like, yeah, I kind of want to get to know this person, like as not necessarily my mom, but like as a person. And I want her to get to know me, and I want to get to like her, and I think the vacation itself really stripped away, the ideas that I had in my head about mother-daughter, and helped me to realize what was real, right? And I think the COVID-19 like experience really did some of that for a lot of families as well, right? People were together, people were in close proximity, and it was like, oh, like, what do I do? Now, do I really like these people? And am I going to sort of learn how to do that? So I think time can be an issue, pretense can be an issue, and a quick fix. So I work with a lot of couples, and if you think vacation is going to solve for, family relational issues, it's highly unlikely. It is highly unlikely that will be the case. And you might as well just call me and give me your vacation money, because it is better to really face the facts and deal with the underlying issues of why the relationship has gone sour, whether it might be patterns, maladaptive habits or behaviors, mindsets, approaches, whatever the case is. Like, it's better to deal with the actual like foundational issues than to try to go on vacation for a quick fix, because it's not going to work. And I think we all handle things differently or what have you, but the figuring out the real issue is a better long-term solution, right? It gives you more viability for healthy long-term relationship as a family. So I wanted to
Jenny,
yeah, jump in. Right.
could I, if I could throw something in there too? I think that
Absolutely.
now that I'm the adult making those choices and those financial choices, when I was younger, trips were few and far between,
Yeah.
and trips generally were to the Caribbean, if anything, to the native country of my parents, and so I never looked at those as vacations. Those were trips
Okay. Yeah.
because to me, I separate trip from vacation. The
Okay.
road trip I take with my kids is not a vacation. The
Mm.
road trip I take with my kids, there's like, typically we're gonna go see family, we're gonna do something. But time spent with my children
Mm-hmm.
is no different than time spent here with my children. The thought is them, taking care of them, making their experience, make sure they eat. All the things that all the different concerns I have here at home, I bring those with me to the trip and on the trip. When I'm on vacation, I'm at an all inclusive. I'm at a place where I say to my kids, let's eat breakfast together. Hurry up and eat, because we're walking you to your program so that I don't have to provide all of the things that I'm normally providing. So
Yeah.
these other people I'm paying at this resort are going to entertain you, are going to answer all your questions, are going to deal with all your inquiries, are going to feed you, are going to make your experience everything that I would have to do if I
Mm.
wasn't paid to do it.
Yeah.
Once my kids leave my presence and they're with the staff at the resort, that is when my vacation starts.
Yeah.
That's now when I chase my wife and try to convince her that now is the time we can be fully intimate, because there's no one going to open the door on us. There is nobody going to knock on the door asking us silly
Yeah.
questions. There's no one interrupting our conversations, right? We've taken care of the custodial part of parenting, and
Mm-hmm.
we've contracted that out to someone else. So within reason, obviously we don't forget about the kids, but within reason, now we can now have uninterrupted conversation,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes uninterrupted sleep, right?
Yeah.
Uninterrupted physical and emotional intimacy, right? Uninterrupted meals, right?
Yeah.
It's in a, for example, like I said, like a vacation resort setting,
Mm-hmm.
that now we can now maybe reconnect, right? Because we planned, we thought of, we've done all the custodial components of our family life, planning and getting ready for this vacation. But my vacation doesn't start until my kids are away from me. That might seem kind of crass, but that's in my mind. That is the reality of a trip versus a vacation. So there's
Yeah.
family vacation, there's family trip. Sorry, that's one.
I,
That's my.
I like that distinction, right? Because you're making the distinction based on, again, the objectives. Like, what is the point of doing this thing? How is it going to affect and impact my relationships, right? So you recognizing and understanding your role is different in each of those settings. A trip, you still maintain the role as, parent, as opposed to a vacation where you get to take a break from some of those responsibilities. And so the impact is different on each person, within the family, and each relational dynamic within the family as well. I don't know if, sorry, I saw a comment in the chat that I wanted to make sure I didn't miss. Great perspective, Jason. Yes, awesome. Love experiencing
Yeah,
different
that's
cultures,
basically what I
foods.
wanted to say.
Say again?
Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say. I
Oh,
really appreciate the distinction between the two. I concur. It makes a lot of sense.
thank you,
What
Kevin.
up, Sean? Sean's my brother right
What
there.
up, big man?
What's up, brother? What's up?
Good to see you, brother.
Good to
All
see you.
right. Joanne says, love experiencing different culture, food, architecture, and awesome scenery, and trying to learn some words in a different language too. Okay. So that's some of the benefit of going on vacation, and some of what she loves on vacation. Thank you for sharing, Jojo. Okay. We're gonna jump into the privilege of vacation. Okay. So this, you may or may not agree, and I'd love to hear your opinions. But from my perspective, going on vacation is actually a privilege, right? Because not everyone has the time to go away on vacation. And I remember even thinking about the kind of, like when I was younger, the kind of life that I wanted to live. I wanted to like create a life for myself that I didn't have to go on vacation from. Like I didn't need to go on vacation because I was tired and angry and stressed out and bored with my job and so on. I was like, what if I had a life that I don't need to go on vacation. I'm just like in perpetual vacation. And that was like the goal. And I think, that maybe didn't align with society's vision for me or other people's expectations of what I should want. I should probably want to like have the 9 to 5 in the car and the house and whatnot. But I think the idea is that I had the opportunity to have the privilege of experiencing something and then wanting to have more of it. And I think it's important for us to recognize that not everybody has that. Like going different places and experiencing different cultures is more accessible now, but it's not like it's not accessible to everybody. Like we are unique, sort of set of people over here in the Western world that do have a lot of access and a lot of privilege when it comes to time, even like time off of work and things like that. And yeah, anyway, I think money is also a privilege, right? Some people just don't have the money to go on vacation. And vacations cost money. Like you have to spend money to go, and not everybody can afford to go to the Galapagos Islands or to Fiji, like my friend Hannah did on spring break when we were in grade 6. It's like a little bitter. Not everybody has that opportunity. And I think sometimes, there are sort of psychological messagings there, like what can you afford? What can your family afford? I mean, my family only ever went on one family vacation, and we went to Florida, and it was great. I saw the alligators and the dolphins and whatnot, but like the idea is that, it wasn't something that was regular and we could just do. It was a privilege. And I remember, we used to live in government housing. My parents, they had to save up and plan and make sure we had that great experience. But the idea is that like, going costs money, it costs time, and it's a privilege to go on vacation. I think it's important for us to remember that as we plan, and as we curate experiences with our loved ones. Right? It's not all about content, get the fancy picture at the fancy resort for the gram, but really focusing in on the quality of the time spent together. Did somebody put their hand up? Oh, it's a privilege, not a right. Yes, Kevin. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right. And I think
Yeah.
it's important for us to sort of bring that into the conversation, especially as we think about and even trips. Like I love the distinction there between the two. But I also think that even staycations, like it's still a privilege to have the opportunity to like disconnect, to escape, whatever, to really focus in on our relationships. Expectations,
I,
jump
I
in.
was gonna say, I agree with you in terms of the privilege, right? Um, it isn't lost on me that not everybody can afford to take the time off work. Not everybody gets the vacation time, and
Yeah.
not everybody has the means to make the distinction between trips and vacations, right? Like,
That too.
you know, Sandbanks might be the family trip this year. You know what I mean? Like
And Sandbanks is awesome.
it is. No, it's beautiful. But you know, for some people that's like, oh, that's we do that every year. So for some people it's like, no, we had to plan, we had to save, we had to put aside, right? Like, and like you mentioned, some parents, they are making they are making a lot of financial choices around the kind of experience they want to curate for their kids.
Yeah.
Right. But again, to me, if we are going to invest, like you mentioned, stuff like the you know, for some people, these things are about, you know, going and, you know, making sure they document it, making sure they let their social community online know they're documenting it. I would say for me, of all the things worth putting on a credit card, worth borrowing for, it would be trips and those experiences.
Nice.
Like, to me, I'm turning 48 this year, and when I look back on my life as an individual and my life as a parent, like, if I tell my kids, hey, these are the things you want to invest your money in, one of them would be travel, right? If you got to hold off on buying a home, like I know we talk about, like right now, everybody's about financial freedom. Everyone's about multiple streams of income, you know, retire early, all those things. Yeah, those are all great. So I'm not telling people not to. But I think that if you could do anything to invest in yourself, even more than getting a university degree, right?
Yes, University of Travel.
Right. The money you would spend on that undergrad, if you put it towards traveling and maybe working in another country, traveling and seeing another country and using that investment of time and money and labor to develop yourself as a person, to me, all the other things you want, you will access as life goes on. You can access, especially now you mentioned COVID. Since COVID, like, you can access education online.
Yep.
And you can access a pretty good education online.
Absolutely.
There's always going to be a job waiting. There's always is.
Yeah.
They're always looking for people to work something. Right. And so to me, if what I'd pass on to my children is, you know, you traveling, you developing, you pouring into yourself, right, and making yourself a more interesting person, will probably open more doors for you than buying a home as fast as you can,
getting
you know,
into debt,
retiring early, you know, going into debt for your education, right? And then realizing that's not what you wanted to do, when maybe if you had taken the time to travel, to go live someplace else, you would have had more opportunity to see who you really are. And then when you want to make that investment in your education, you invest the right way and in the right things. And you learn other ways to do it because you meet other people who tell you other ways to do things. They show you other ways to get what you need, right? Like now, there's so many ways to educate yourself and so many ways to get the theoretical that it's almost worth just taking the time to travel and meet the people who introduce you. And it's like, to me, like, especially as people of color, and specifically as people of African descent, right? We need to see the world outside of North America so we can recognize the BS that we see in North America, that is the norm, that is what's accepted as being, this is your place, this is your lot, we need to step outside of North America and see how other people live and how other people get along and the values and things that other people have, so that we can now start to make more conscious decisions.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with that. And I think, you know, part of it is recognizing, like, that at times that mentality is insulting. Like, it is insulting to, especially as first generation, you know, Caribbean folk, or Canadians of Caribbean descent or African descent, like that can be an insulting perspective to our parents who are like, you know, we came here to give you a better life. You're squandering it, wasting it, doing all these things that are frivolous, and unimportant, you know, but I found that pursuing like passion and purpose and travel and, you know, expanding perspectives that way has brought me to a place of contentment and joy, like more quickly than, of course, doing all the degrees and so on. So I definitely respect and agree. I see two hands up. I see Natasha and I see Samuel, and I think Natasha was first. So jump in. You can throw on your mic if.
Hey,
Hey, Tash.
so what I was gonna say, I love what I'm hearing. And I don't have a family in terms of like kids and a husband, but one thing I got from the little bit of traveling I did with my family was a love of travel. And so I went from saying I love travel and planning the trip and figuring out how I was going to pay for it to becoming very strategic. So I researched points cards. I have, you know, a really good points plan with my credit card. I have a vacation account now where month money goes in. So I want, when I land, within a week of landing, I want my trip to be paid. And so I altered how I approach it in order to make sure that I can facilitate travel as part of my life because I value it so much. But it took me a while to get there. I was just kind of going, oh, I'm gonna go here and I do whatever. But now what I'm doing is looking at, because I value this, then how do I incorporate it into the overall way that I live my life? So
yeah.
I found that kind of stuff very helpful. I'm always trying to read blogs and different things to learn trips, hacks to travel well and travel, you know, with a more affordable way if possible. And one thing I recently learned, and this is not affordable, I'm going to Bali in September, and it's too long to fly coach. I'm not young anymore. So my friend and I are doing business class, and we haven't bought our flights yet, but we've been watching videos, and so we're learning about the different carriers, what people are saying and evaluating, which is helping us make a choice because we want to get our tickets in the next few weeks. So that's something now I've learned is do the research too. Make sure that you're looking things up. We're learning about what we can be done there, what we need to be cautious about. But I'm finding that intentionality is making travel being a part of my life much more feasible.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for that, Tash. And those are vacation goals, like have your vacation paid off in the 6 days following the vacation. You got the first day of the vacation. Yeah, vacation goals, 100%. Samuel, jump in, and then I'm going to read a comment in the chat from Kevin.
Yeah, to extend even more on something that Jason was saying, it's one thing that I appreciate about travel, especially at a younger age, but at any age, is the danger that's involved, the risk and the stress. I think it's good for the human body and mind to be put in uncomfortable situations in general,
Absolutely.
and travel does that, right? So I think, yeah, especially when you're younger, I think there's a difference that I've noticed in people who are well-traveled in general, and people who've traveled a lot or lived in different places when they're younger. Their ability to connect with different people, how they react under stress, I think it makes a tangible difference. So I see a lot of benefit to that. Just, you know, yeah, time under tension grows us, right? So I think there's strength there.
Yeah, absolutely, Samuel. And I love that. That brings us to the power of travel. There is so much, the power of taking vacations, the power of family vacations. There's so much in there. And I just listed 3, but you listed like 4 just now. You know, that ability to connect with different people, that ability to respond to stressors in different ways. Like it's not going to take you out because you're like, whoa, you know, I had this experience when I was in Bali, for example, right? And so I think there's definitely power in traveling, and especially traveling as a group or as a family or as a couple. And you know, I just listed a few here, just like the power of choosing joy and fun, right? Because there are not many times in our lives when like the sole purpose or, you know, I guess the situation is designed for us to just have fun and just enjoy ourselves, right? Where we can just play and laugh and do, you know, different kinds of things. We can go hang gliding or, you know, go paddle boarding or whatever. And I think it's a unique opportunity, right? Even like as planners or as parents, right, in that position, you can tap into your inner child, you know, in that moment, like, oh, where can we go as a family? And you know, Jason was mentioning, hey, you know, this is a time when the kids go off and do whatever they're doing, and my time or my focus or my value gets focused on. You know, it's like I can now spend quality time with my wife, you know, catching up on sleep or, you know, whatever. And so you can really curate it to use the time for what you want, what you desire, whatever you consider fun or fulfilling, you know. So I think there's power in that. There's power in the clarity that you can get when you are on vacation. Like sometimes we tell ourselves more of the truth, like sitting on a beach when the, you know, the waves are coming in and the sun is shining. Sometimes we tell ourselves more about the truth of our lives than if we are, you know, at home in the hustle bustle, on the grind and so on. Sometimes, you know, we might be in relaxation mode on vacation and realize, you know, we really don't like our jobs, or we really are not good at our jobs, or, you know, we might want to homeschool the kids, or, you know, whatever the case might be. I think that there's a clarity that comes when we allow for ourselves to disconnect from, you know, our familiar surroundings and go away. And I think there's a power in gratitude, right? Recognizing this connects back to privilege, recognizing that when we do visit other places and we see other people and how they live, you know, that can really stir up gratitude on the inside of us. Like, oh, you know, we have an appreciation for perhaps some of the privilege and the amenities that we do have back home and that we grew up with, that maybe others don't have, you know. And I think it can also compel us to, like, and I was thinking about this the other day, but it can also compel us to serve, you know. So I'm going on my very first missions trip this year. I'm not really, I'm not, I'm not particularly giving, I guess, to strangers. Like I'm generous with people I love and care about, but I've never been one to like give to the homeless, like on the street and things like that, or like sign up for soup kitchens and stuff. So this is actually really big for me. But I think like the idea of recognizing, you know, that we do have privilege and that we can be grateful to go other places, can also like inspire us to serve and to give back. I remember I went to Cuba, this was years ago, and just in like reading and researching on Cuba and the amenities and the, like that they didn't have access to, and like restrictions and stuff. I remember filling like a suitcase with like toiletries and stuff just to bring there. And those kinds, I mean, it might come naturally to you guys, but it didn't like it didn't come natural to me to like do stuff like that until I started like traveling and seeing other places and seeing, you know, that there were very vast like differences in our level of access to like simple things like, you know, food, clean water. And I think the more that I travel, the less I complain about certain things. Anyway, I still complain about service because I think at the end of the day, we all should just treat each other properly. But the less I complain and the more gratitude that I have for like the privilege, you know, of living how I live. So I think there's power in that as well. Did I hear somebody's mic go on?
I was gonna say I was gonna agree with you totally.
Mm-hmm.
Three things I want to say. Samuel, by the way, I'm gonna borrow that idea that you mentioned, that, you know, time under tension, growth. I know we hear that in terms of in reference to working out and strength training and stuff, but that's like an awesome philosophy for life. Like, like that just I'm gonna have to borrow that, man, and I'll quote you as saying I got it from you. Two, you mentioned going to Cuba. I as well went to Cuba, and Cuba and Thailand really put into perspective the privilege of travel to me.
Yeah.
Because when I was in Cuba, initially it annoyed me, but in looking back, it made me have to kind of check my attitude. The constant people asking for tips, right? And then seeing people who pretty much look like me, right? In another country, and then hearing some of their stories and hearing how much lack
Mhm.
there is, how much lack of access,
Yeah.
but still seeing people relatively happy in a sense, like
Mm.
they don't have it, but they're getting along without it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're asking for you to help them. So now they're like, hey, they do something and they're like, they put out their hand for a tip, and here in North America, it's kind of like, well, no, like it's my choice to tip. And,
Right.
you're kind of out of line, like just expecting it. And all of that stuff, I had to kind of just step back and,
Yeah.
allow the Holy Spirit to rescue me from that mindset. And then when I went to Thailand, and, anybody I would tell it's worth the trip. I know it's far, it's worth the trip. It's beautiful. There's so much to see in parts of Asia and Africa and other parts of the world. But Thailand stuck out to me because, here I am in Bangkok, walking around, seeing like, well, first lots of people, really overcrowded, like overcrowded.
Mhm.
And then you're seeing like the splendor of the Bangkok Palace and all the touristy things, but you're also seeing people begging on the side of the street who have no eyes, right? Like you're seeing extreme deformities that we don't even really see here in North America because to some
Yeah.
degree our privilege has addressed some of those things.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the decadence of what other countries do to attract tourism, the
Mhm.
degrees to which they'll go to make my tourist experience pleasant, right? Like everything around me when I was in Thailand and specifically Bangkok was around, hey, let me take you here, let me make you happy so that like you will spend money
Yeah.
to push the economy, and then I will bring you to a friend who has something to offer you, and that friend will bring you to another friend who has something to offer you, and that person has a boat that we can take you to the floating markets on, and then we'll bring you to one of the floating markets. So, they've geared their economy to make my experience in their country as pleasant as possible, right? But then that's the privilege. But then I also see, well, that's what happens when there's extreme poverty. People who are born with no eyes, people who have all kinds of deformities, who are left to beg because they have nothing to offer the tourist, right? And so
Yeah.
that privilege of travel, there's a lesson in that privilege as well, right? Like you get a real clear perspective on where you are in the world. You might have scrimped and saved for that trip, but you're still better off than like 95% of the people you're going to meet when you travel throughout the world, right? So
Yeah.
it's definitely a privilege, and definitely we have power, right? Even as we go to these countries, right? They are almost at our beckon,
Yeah.
right? Which is it's a position of power, right?
Huge. That is huge. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that. Um, yeah, and for sharing your experience as well. And it's so true, right? Um, we are, yeah, the position of power, the position where they are serving us, essentially. And I actually never thought about that. So thanks for that. Kevin, it's more about creating the memories and enjoying the moments. Documenting them is nice enough, but it really only means something if the people you shared the moments um, are there to reflect with you. It's really for you and the people you shared them with. Posting on socials is way down the list, if at all. Thanks, Kevin, for that perspective, for sure. All right, so maybe I like to be mindful of the time because I know a lot of us are on our lunch breaks. So I'll go through just a couple of more. And if you guys have thoughts, yeah, throw them in the chat. And I think Natasha spoke to this, the preparation, right? The planning, the packing, the process of vacation, right? Whether it's family vacation and whoever's involved in your family unit. But planning and packing, there's specific skills. And I think the idea of, and I love this part, by the way, I love planning. Like I just love imagining. I will read and research forever right? I'm like a page to the stage person. I'm like, what can I do? I'm looking up the lists. Like I'm the person on the YouTube, like 30 best things to do in Bali. You know, I'm that person. And I'm going to read all the reviews for the hotels too. But I love the planning process. And I think being intentional about what we want to accomplish or achieve, again, is important for the travel experience to be really great. And that means we think about how it affects and impacts our relational bonds as well, right? So not just the adventure. So when I talk about relationships, I'm also talking about the relationship that we build with ourselves, right? And so how we see ourselves. And Samuel said it earlier. You know, there's a level of challenge that's involved in traveling, and that means that we get to build up a sense of resilience, right? So we get to see and notice that in ourselves as we continue to live and confront, you know, daily, weekly, annual challenges and face developmental stages. And I think that's part of the preparation process, or at least it can be, especially as we think about vacations in terms of building relationships or an opportunity to revolutionize our relationship. And so I think it's important. I remember I have neighbors, my neighbors, they're a couple, and just in terms of packing, I remember the wife telling me the story, like when they're going away, he will like fold up his clothes like for each day and like pack it in the bag. Like each day has its own little, you know, sort of square. And he packs like really neatly and really in an organized way. And then she just like throws stuff out and she's like, this is an option for this day. This is an option for this event. And then she like swipes everything into the suitcase and tries to like close it really tightly. And I think that speaks of like personality. I think it speaks of like, you know, the process that we go through when we think about going away, when we think about connecting with ourselves and with other people, and how we approach life. And I think it's important for us to be free to be ourselves, but also allow for others to be themselves as well in the preparation process. So yeah, so the preparation is important, right? We got to think about the objectives that we have and pursue them. These are just some quotes real
Can I
quick.
say something, Jen?
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Who is it talking?
It's Clover. It's
Hey.
Clover Lynn.
Hey.
Hey, I'm driving, so I can't probably carry on. But even that, as you're talking about the preparation process and doing those pieces, like I was that very rigid. This is my day. I know exactly what I'm wearing each day. I've got the 2 outfits for each day. Everything is stocked and packed, and I've planned everything. Everything is written out and mapped. And it's what I've realized is that as I've gotten older, I'm more carefree in how my packing process, my experiencing process. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna leave a day for just we can explore and kind of figure out maybe we want to change a plan that day or just spontaneously do something. And
Yeah.
it's just funny how even in my planning, that's happening in my life too, right? Like as I'm getting older, my vacationing looks different, my packing looks different,
Wow.
where I'm choosing to go is different too. And it's just, yeah, it's interesting to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've evolved and there's like reflection, right? So some of the way in which you prepared and planned and packed and so on is reflecting your evolution, your growth, and your changes as a person. So that's really cool. I didn't say this, but Natasha referenced it earlier. Like the idea of planning involves like budgeting as well, right? And you know, Jason was saying, hey, if you want to borrow money or, you know, put it on your credit card and so on, like travel is a really great investment, right? You're investing in the experience and the opportunities that are available through travel. But planning and preparing also does involve looking at your money. Like, hey, you know, we have to pay for stuff when we go on vacation. You don't want to get there and be like, oh man, my credit cards are maxed out and I ain't got no money. I can only eat ramen. Although that might not be so bad, but just thinking about the planning and preparation process. I thought these quotes were cute. A vacation with kids is called a yeah right. Thank you, Jason, for alluding to that earlier. So that's actually called a trip now. Okay, we got new language for that. And the other quote was, I am the mother. So for me, this is not a family vacation, it's a business trip. And how often are mothers sort of the administrators of their families, right? And so I actually really just love that. And I was like, maybe you could just write it off as a business trip. But I thought those were cute. And, you know, perhaps you guys have entertained, you know, different roles as you guys have been part of families as the child, the sibling, the parent, over the years, and looking at those different experiences. Okay, we got, I like the business trip one too. All right, stats. COVID-19 pandemic has cost the global tourism industry $935 billion. Jason talked a little bit about his experience in Cuba. Like, there are literally countries, guys, that are set up. Their first and foremost duty is to bring tourists there, because tourists bring tourist dollars, and that's how they function. Like, that's how their economy grows, right? And so, COVID, when nobody was traveling, it really wrecked some economies. 88% of families plan to go on vacation in 2023, which is a stark increase. A lot of people are valuing the opportunity to go on vacation and to travel more, especially, this is an American stat. So I don't know if you guys know, but Americans don't travel as much as Canadians and Europeans. Sorry, outside of America, outside of the United States of America. So now, people in the US are like, we got to travel all over the world and get out of the United States. So that's a trend that's changing as well in vacationing. And studies show that happiness levels peak on day number 8 of vacations, and specifically vacations with multiple people that we might use to define like family. Perspectives. And I'm going to be mindful of the time. Okay, we've got a few more minutes here. Perspectives are important to be aware of. I actually was thinking about this as a Black female from a big city, right? And I was thinking, are there like cultural gender differences when it comes to vacationing, when it comes to planning vacations, when it comes to experiencing vacations as a family or as a group, right? Like, what do different cultures or different genders see as important on vacation? What might be different, concerns, maybe even safety concerns? Like, as a Black woman, do I have the same safety concerns as a white woman? Jason said it earlier, like, a lot of our parents will go back home, on vacation or maybe take a trip. So they're going back to, Jamaica, or going back to the Caribbean or what have you. And in my mind, that's not really traveling. That's like going back home. But obviously it costs money, it takes time, and so on. And I'm thinking, like, my parents see travel much differently than I see traveling and vacationing, and I was just thinking, like, as a female, like, what concerns do I have, or what ideas do I have about vacations and travel that might be different from others? Like, even as a father, I don't know, Jason, maybe you can speak to this, or Kevin, but like, as a male, because males are usually seen as like the provider, within the family. It's like, is there like a sense of pride that comes, like, I can take my family, to
Yes.
Fiji, versus like, oh man, I got to
Yeah.
take them to like New York, like.
Well, again, it all depends on what the goal of the trip or vacation is. If I can take my family to Fiji, I'm at a certain financial level of success. And so the Fiji trip might be a status thing, right? It could be. I'm not knocking anyone who goes there, because it could also be really good planning. It could be after 4 or 5 years of saving. That's worth it. We're going to go to Fiji. I mean, to me, one of the goals my wife and I talked about is some part of Africa being on the family to-do list, bucket list. I'd love to go do a safari trip. Well, I'd love to go see parts of West Africa.
Yeah.
I'd love to see parts of East and North Africa. Right. So to me, like, if that's like a life goal thing, and I'd love to experience it with my children, so that there's something we can talk about that share together. But I know, like, when I was living in Japan, I met people who were traveling all through Asia. And so sometimes people, they hop. They'll come to one location, spend some time there, and then hop to another one. And so I met a lot of Americans who came to Japan to work, maybe for 6 months, save as much money as possible. Their goal was then to hop to Vietnam, hop to Bali, hop to South Korea, because with the money they made in Japan and it being cheaper to fly between those areas in Asia,
Right.
they could, in essence, spend half a year traveling off half a year's work. And so the women that I met who were traveling like that, they mentioned to me that the safety concern is the biggest thing, right? No matter where women go, their bodies are a commodity to some people. And so the physical danger, because there are men everywhere, so there's always men who could potentially rape you, right? That's always present. With the guys I met who were traveling, as long as it was within Asia, they never expressed any concern or fear of physical safety.
Yeah.
I know that when I was living in Japan, I was never physically afraid or never concerned of safety. I met people who would get drunk, fall asleep on the floor, on the street. They'd be so wasted, and they would tell me like, "Man, I woke up. Some older Japanese storekeeper woke me up and pointed me towards the train station and said, your train's leaving in like the next 10 minutes. You better get on your like." There was no concern for their personal safety as guys.
Yeah.
Right. That could be where we were. I don't know if they'd feel that way, for example, in Jamaica, falling asleep after being drunk in a location, right? Or in parts of South America, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, but I can say to you, like, hey, you know, don't tell my pastor, but I play the lottery sometimes, especially in the work pool.
I'm telling.
And one of the things that's on my mind is if I win big, trips that's above buying a new house. Again, I don't have a dream car. I don't have a dream house. None of that. I want to go, like I said, I want to go to parts of Africa. I want to take my kids to parts of Asia. I want to see different parts of it. That's, to me, that's worth the money, right? And I'll drag them kicking and screaming because I know when they now are no longer my financial responsibility and maybe they can't afford to do it on their own, they'll at least be able to say, like, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw the pyramid.
Yeah.
I saw, I went to Vietnam and saw the temples there. I went to Thailand and saw I went to Japan and saw the castles. Like, to me, that is what is worth spending.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. Sorry. Thank you guys so much for your patience. We are a little bit over time. I'm going to ask for about 3 more minutes for us to wrap and close. And then we'll turn off the recording just to keep it within the time frame. And then we can stay on if Jason can stay on for a few more minutes. If you guys have questions or shares, we can do that. But okay, sorry. These are so practical things. I think we've covered them through our comments and our conversation thus far. So expect stress in vacation planning. Must do, that's just my own personal in terms of planning. Have a must do for each person on the trip. So if you're planning for a family of 4, talk to your kids and be like, hey, what do you want to do? I want to go hiking, or I want to go to the pool, or I want to have everybody have one thing that they must do and make sure that they get that done on vacation. Set and respect boundaries on vacation. So if people don't want to go or don't want to do something, like, just be okay with that. That actually happened to me recently. I was like, no, we need to do this. And the person got really sick. So anyway, just set and respect boundaries for yourself and for others. Be open to trying new things, of course, and then check in like, hey, how was your day? How did that go? And, so on. Keep the conversation open for maximizing, the bonding opportunities that are available on vacation. And then we have revolutionary relationships. And so there's a lot that we can do. I think for each of us, it can look different based on our personality. These are actual pictures, by the way. I threw in, this is footage of like the only family vacation that we went on. And I think my mom is in there somewhere. But this was like the thing. I think these are from that vacation. I could be wrong, but I think these are from that vacation. That's me in the little pink jumper because I'm so fly. But But I think in thinking about it and really planning for what comes up in our lives, we can have revolutionary relationships and we can be healthy and have quality experiences. So that's what we promote. That's what we're all talking about these things for. And so I encourage us to continue. Personal challenge comes every single week. Apply something that you've heard, change something about yourself, teach something to someone else. Throw it in the chat if there's one thing that you are going to act on this week as it pertains to vacations, whether it's getting a new card, whether it's texting Natasha to find out about these points cards and, getting to know about more perks. Put in the chat one thing that you guys are going to do. For the replays, you can download the Mentiverse app on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, or you can log into the YouTube channel, which will be up this week. And I'll be posting all of the episodes from seasons 1 through 4 thus far on the YouTube channel. So you can catch the replay next week, guys. Next week, we'll continue our family series, or family edition of the relationship series. And we'll be talking about praying together. And so it can be a touchy subject. How does our faith play a role in our families? Or does it, do we practice what we preach? Do we wish that it was part of our families more than it is? And if there's different faith, my dad was Muslim, my mom was Christian, if there are different faith traditions, how do you incorporate that into your family context? We talk about train up a child in the Bible, right? And, do we let them choose which way to go and so on and so forth. So we want to talk about all of that, especially with the universe and all these Eastern and, ideas and so on, Allah, Buddha, all the things. So we want to talk about praying together. We want to talk about religion and faith next week in the context of our families and building revolutionary relationships. So be back Thursday, 12 noon. And then, of course, you can reach out at any point in time to ask questions, send an email, or if you want additional support, coaching, advice, consults, all the things. I'm here. And if you want to connect with anybody else that's been on the chat, let me know and I will put you in touch with them. Jason, can you tell folks your handle real quick so that
I'm on Instagram at Elemental Jiu-Jitsu because I'm a martial arts instructor. Elemental Jiu-Jitsu, that's JITSU. Elemental. That's my dog. Sorry about that.
we hear.
Yeah. Come.
All right. I'm going to throw it in the chat.
Come here. Say hi. Say hi. Come here. This is why I can't travel as much. Because he likes being around me. Yes, I'll throw it in the chat, or you can throw it in the chat, but yes, I'm available there. Yeah, I'm around. Those who know me, so I'm around if you need to get a hold of me.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Elemental Jiu-Jitsu, I think I spelled it right. I just threw it in the chat. And Marva says, I will explore traveling business class for the next trip. Thank you. Absolutely. Contact information, Natasha, folks want to hear about those cards. And so Natasha, can you throw your handle in there so folks can message you about these travel cards? I use Marriott Bonvoy, which is, it's American Express, which gives you Bonvoy points. So you can stay at Marriott hotels for free. And that's a really good card if you're used to getting, what are they called? Like really good flights. Thank you so much. IG handle, Natasha Halliday, and then Elemental Jiu-Jitsu. I almost got it. I missed the E. It's not an E. It's not an I, it's an E. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Lots of good information here. And at the end of the day, guys, we're just trying to be better and do this thing called life on a level. So thank you guys so much for being here. It is always a pleasure. I always learn so much. And there's always so many great takeaways for me. And I just appreciate you guys being passionate people with me who want to improve and grow. So I love you guys. Have an amazing rest of the day. And I'll see you guys next week, Thursday at 12 noon for another episode of the relationship series. Bless you guys.